Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disney Co. in the Know Wizarding World podcast. Today, we are talking about Fluffy and Quidditch from Chapter 9 and where you can find that in Universal. I am Bruce, and I'll be your host. And tonight, I am joined by Disney Co. in the Know contributors Hannah.
Hey, y'all.
And Jake.
What's up?
And Steven.
Hey, everyone.
And we have a couple of news stories coming out of Universal and from J.K. Rowling in recent days on Twitter. But before we get into that, just want to say that this show is sponsored by 407 and Beyond Vacation Company, Disney and Universal experts who help plan your family's perfect vacation. So all you have to do is show up, have fun, and create family memories. As always, our services are free to you. Visit us on the web at www.407vacations.com. All right. So did you guys, I'm sure you guys have been following along on social media, but Universal City Walk opened up recently, and guests have been able to go to City Walk and experience that again, of course, with health and safety precautions. But the big news coming out of this previous week from Universal is that they submitted plans to the Orange County Economic Recovery Task Force, that definitely needs an acronym, and which was approved for reopening, and it went to the Mayor Demings. He approved it. It went to the governor. He has approved it. So Universal Orlando will open up on June 1st. So for the first few days, they will be open to employees and special guests. And then on June 5th, the parks will open to the public.
Woohoo!
So Universal is at the forefront with some of these other parks ready to reopen. And I do just want to very briefly set forth what guests can expect when heading back to Universal. And so masks will absolutely be required. Universal did initially say that they would provide masks to guests, but that has later since been retracted. So if you are going to Universal in early June, make sure to take your own masks, and it will be required that you wear one. Universal is instilling virtual queues, so you won't stand in line like conventionally in the queue. You will get a boarding time on your phone, and then show back up to the ride. There will be no single rider lines. All guests will have their temperature taken at the entry of the park, and if it tests high enough, you will be denied entry. The park will open up with capacity limits, and hand sanitizing booths will be set up outside of queues and around the park. And guests are encouraged to try to use cashless transactions, meaning try to use your credit cards, debit cards, gift cards, or Apple Pay or Google Pay. So that's kind of the rundown of what to expect at the reopening of Universal Orlando. I have heard that the date in which the resorts will reopen, so guests can stay in their hotels, has not been released. So this is just strictly park reopenings. So that's the news coming out of Universal this week. It's exciting, and it seems like they have all of the necessary health and safety measures to reopen. As I said, City Walk has been open for a little while. Disney Springs opened up last week. We have not yet heard a date that Disney will reopen, but Universal, June 5th, open to the public. So what do you guys think about this?
It's exciting stuff.
It absolutely is. It's super exciting. I'm wondering, are they putting limits? I know it was kind of in the talks about indoor rides, like, and whether or not they'll be open. And I know a lot of the rides there have at least indoor sections, if not like the whole thing, like in the Harry Potter park and stuff, especially. Is there any limitations on what rides are going to be open?
So it doesn't seem that the limitations are on indoor rides, but that they are limiting water attractions for health reasons. So any attractions that are primarily based in water may not be running, or if an attraction has a water element, that water element will not be operational. So if a ride has mist or shooting water, that will not be operational. So that's just to help prevent the spread, obviously, of the virus. So I'm not in the medical field. I don't know how water ties in, but apparently it does, and so Universal is taking those safety measures. So a big topic has been with everything reopening is the masks down in the Florida heat. Of course, I think that it's going to be a little hot wearing a mask, but you will be required to wear one. And people have reached out to me asking my thoughts on it, and my thoughts are very simple. Universal Orlando is private property, and if you want to visit private property, you got to play by their rules, and part of their rules right now is you have to wear a mask. So if you want to go to a theme park right now in the middle of Orlando, then a mask is required. So, but I imagine over time that the requirements in the precautionary health and safety measures over time will probably wane off a little bit. So, guys, I feel like I am talking way too much tonight. So just tell me your thoughts. Do you think a mask will bother you on your next visit? Do you have any problems with the temperature screenings and physical distancing? Does it make you feel safe? Do you have any kind of non-political thoughts on the health and safety measures?
Well, just as someone who's worked in, multiple amusement parks and attractions and stuff like that, like you got to take the steps you got to take. So they're just doing what they think is best. And like you said, it's, if you don't want to follow those rules, you don't have to go. But I think it's extremely reasonable. Like they're just trying to ensure health and safety and stuff. I think the most important thing is just getting the park back open as soon as possible. No matter what the circumstances behind it are. Like we want to we want to get back out there. We want to have fun, start living our lives again as much as we can. So I think it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's just impressive the measures they can take on such a large scale, taking everybody's temperature, monitoring, if it's too high, turning people away, things like that. I love the idea of the virtual queue. I think that gives you more time to kind of walk around and explore the park. And just kind of enjoy the atmosphere, the environment, being there. And, while you're doing that, you're kind of waiting in line at the same time, so you can just kind of walk up to the ride. So I think that it would be worth wearing a mask for. You're going to be hot anyways, you know where you're at. But I think the changes that they're making are willing to do are definitely worth being able to go back there and see the park for.
So anything else on Universal reopening? All right, very good. So for those of you who are watching the show for the first time, what we do generally here is we talk about Universal and Wizarding World news, and then we use Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone chapter by chapter to help guide our discussion on Universal Orlando. So if a particular item or sport or new place in the castle or new character is introduced in the novels, we then relate it to where you can see that in the Wizarding World at Universal Orlando. And then sometimes we sprinkle in the Warner Brothers studio tour in London, just because that's so great, those movie sets. So anyways, so for the next 60 or so seconds, Stephen is going to give us a chapter recap of Chapter 9, The Midnight Duel, and then we will discuss what in that chapter we can find at Universal. So Stephen, I will turn it on over to you to give us a quick chapter recap.
All right, real quick here. So we kind of enter the chapter with Harry and Ron kind of not looking forward to, having more lessons with the Slytherins. I think it's at breakfast. Kind of see them talking about this, and then through the mail we get introduced to a Remembrall, which Neville receives from his gran. And Malfoy kind of approaches, and he's up to no good, and so we kind of see this conflict start to build. And then they have their first flight lessons. And here we see Neville kind of get out of control and drop his Remembrall and break his wrist and get escorted kind of to the hospital. And Malfoy picks up Remembrall and has an argument with Harry, and Harry gets on his broom, and it's the first time we kind of see him on a broom and flying. And he makes a miraculous catch after Malfoy throws the Remembrall. McGonagall sees this and puts him on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and then later on, when again they're back in the hall, Malfoy comes to kind of make fun of him and challenges Harry to a duel. So later that night, Harry and Ron and Hermione and Neville happen to be there too, kind of sneak around the castle and try and meet up with Malfoy for a duel. And they get chased around by Filch and Miss Norris, and they kind of wander upon, the restricted area or the off-limits area in the third floor corridor, and they somehow manage to run into Fluffy by accident and realize there's a trapdoor underneath them, and so they kind of go to bed wondering, what exactly is underneath that trapdoor. So this chapter kind of allows us to see some pretty unique items that you can also find at Universal, things like the Remember All. We see the brooms, Fluffy, those things kind of stand out that we get to see introduced in this chapter.
We are introduced to Fluffy in this chapter, so I do want to talk about Fluffy at Universal Orlando. Does anyone want to take the lead on seeing Fluffy at the park?
Well, one of the places that you can see Fluffy is at the Magical Menagerie. You can actually get like toy stuffed Fluffies, and I believe they have him like emblazoned on T-shirts and some merchandise and things like that. So you can kind of get your own Fluffy to take along with you. Everyone loves a dog. He's got 3 heads. Extra dog to love. So if you want your own Fluffy to take home, you can get one there, which I think is a pretty cool little souvenir, especially for kids who love to collect stuffed animals. That's a really great one to get.
Yeah.
In terms of, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Jake.
You can also see him on the Hagrid's motorbike adventure ride.
Yeah.
See the big, like, not real Fluffy, but
to Jake's point on Hagrid's motorbike adventure, about halfway through the attraction, you approach Fluffy, who's on your left-hand side and who's barking, and you kind of zoom past on the motorbike. But it is a pretty cool animatronic to see in real life. So Hagrid's motorbike adventure is a good place to see the real life Fluffy. So
I feel like Fluffy is a really iconic beast from the series. He's only really in this first book, but I feel like everyone, like you mentioned, like Fluffy or the 3-headed dog, and everyone knows kind of what you're talking about. So he's not in the Forbidden Journey ride, so I think for them to include him in Hagrid's motorbike is a really cool way to just kind of keep pulling in these great parts from the series.
Yeah, and he's one of Hagrid's beasts. So Jake,
if it's okay, I want to get off topic just a little bit.
Go for it.
You made the really good point. Like, he is an iconic character and stuff, but he's only in the first book. What happens to Fluffy afterwards? Like, Hagrid must get rid of him or something. Maybe give him to another magical animal handler. Like,
I don't know. Maybe he moved into an apartment above a sporting goods store in London.
Wrote his own wizarding book series.
I don't know. I mean, I think that is a good question, and maybe it is that he went over to Universal to be a full-time attraction actor.
That's right. We already answered it, I guess.
Right? No. But honestly, I don't know what happens to Fluffy. I feel like, is there a line in the book, which we will get to in later episodes, but does Dumbledore eventually move him out of the school?
I believe that they do. After everything happens, I don't think that they ever specify where he went, but I could very much see them sending him somewhere like Gringotts, where he could continue to fulfill that like kind of guarding role over important things.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, they probably could have used him at the big battle of Hogwarts there in the last book and movie. So
it
would have been fun to see. An epic return of Fluffy. Yeah, this battle-ridden 3-headed dog. That would have been pretty good. So let's
see him just like running wild in the Forbidden Forest or something. Like, if they just let him loose in there for a while. I mean,
that's true. We know Hagrid likes to keep his old pets in there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, such a safe place for students. All right, so. Let's talk a little bit about broomsticks and Remembralls, because as part of the chapter recap, we heard those 2 items, and those are 2 items that you can purchase at Universal's Wizarding World as merchandise. So let's talk a little. Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
Hannah, go
gonna
ahead.
say, one thing I think that the movie does and that adds to this part of the book is the scene with Remember All when Neville opens it. As you're reading, he's like, "Oh no, now I have to figure out what it is I've forgotten." And in the movie, if you're watching, he's the only student without his robe on. So you get to like pick up on like we all know what it is that he's forgotten, and I think that that's a fun little visual addition that the movie adds that like you can't really write that into the book. But I just a little tangent. I really like that part of the movie for this scene. I think it adds a nice touch.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I
That's
never picked
interesting.
up on that.
I
No.
never picked up on that either.
We will get to quality Quidditch supply. So we heard that Harry's going to be on the Gryffindor Quidditch team. We will save quality Quidditch store at Diagon Alley for a later episode when Quidditch occurs. But I do want to talk about where you might be able to find Remembralls. So there are two stores, and sometimes merchandise moves, but that sells kind of these broad Harry Potter type gifts or merchandise items. So the first is Filch's Emporium of Confiscated Goods over in Hogsmeade. And I will just take a second to read the description of this store because it really is a really fun store to visit. And it is treasures seized by the cankerous caretaker, pursue items taken from students who got on the wrong side of the school's resident caretaker, Argus Filch. You'll find Hogwarts t-shirts, shoulder bags, caps, scarves, plus house crest banners, stationery, and more. You'll also find authentic movie prop replicas such as Death Eater masks, Quidditch clothing, magical creatures, toys, and more. So this is one of those locations at Universal where you can get just about, I don't want to say anything, but you can get a wide range of merchandise items. So have you guys gotten anything from Filch's shop from him seizing these items from students?
I was able to snag a Hufflepuff sweatshirt from his collection, which is one of my favorites. So
Very good. What about Jake or Steven?
I'm trying to remember. This is the one that you go through like after the Forbidden Journey ride, right?
Right. Yes.
I'm not sure I picked up anything from that one. I think most of the stuff I got was from other stores, but I remember walking through it and it was really cool. There was a ton of stuff there. I think I spent probably more time in there than we did like on the ride and stuff. That was just looking around at stuff. So.
Yeah, Universal certainly does merchandise and Harry Potter merchandise justice. Steven, I'm sorry I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, I was gonna say I like all the school, the houses. They have a lot of different clothing, shirts, and things like that at the different houses, and they have a lot of small scale models of the castle, chess sets, and things like that, which are fun to walk around and look at. I know the next time I'm down here, I'm going to be getting one of the Slytherin scarves. I think that's one of the iconic pieces of clothing you got to get from one of those stores.
Yeah, you are House Slytherin, so you got to represent. So, and then you can use that scarf as a mask too. So, dual purposes. No, just kidding. That does not qualify as a mask. So, all right. So the other store that you can find these types of goods is Wiseacre's Wizarding Equipment, which can be found in Diagon Alley, and this is titled Your One-Stop Sorcery Shop. So Universal site says, at Wiseacre's Wizarding Equipment, visitors will find a variety of wizarding wares and essential supplies, including crystal balls, telescopes, binoculars, spheres, compasses, magnifying glasses, moon charts, globes of the moon, crystal files, and hourglasses. And don't miss the unique selection of apparel and accessories from your favorite Hogwarts house. So more Hogwarts house apparel, but definitely items like Remembralls and model broomsticks at Wiseacres as well. And this is a really cool store in Diagon Alley. The decor and the aesthetic with the wallpaper and the things hanging off from the ceiling this is another one of those merchandise locations that you can just spend some time inside, window shopping, checking it out, and taking photos. So yeah, does anyone have any comment on this?
Yeah, I just love that this is, such an important part of the parks. Like one of the things that really helps us get into the wizarding world, like as presented in the books, is these little items and stuff like, oh, they fly around on broomsticks. You have little magical items like remember alls, those kind of things. And it's so much fun to be able to, go and experience the parks and stuff. But something that really makes it real is being able to actually, get like models of these things. Like it's so cool. I love that aspect of it. I feel like that just even adds to the depth even more. So, uh,
Jake,
just think it's awesome.
I think your insight there is 100% spot on. Because when you read the books, and especially when you see the movies, you want to have these things like tangible in your hands, right? You want the Motter's map, you want a Remember All, you want a house scarf, and the Wizarding World at Universal Orlando does a fantastic job of providing these things these items as merchandise for guests to take home. Because it's more than just a scarf, and it's more than just having this little knickknack. You're bringing kind of the piece of the movies and a piece of the experience home to you. And if you're giving it away as a gift, it's really special. So these types of merchandise options are more than just your typical, hey, I was at Wizarding World, or I love Universal Orlando, which was great merchandise, but these just feel like they have a special emotional attachment to the Wizarding World.
Yeah, and I think one we've already talked about in previous episodes, of course, is wands. Like that might be the biggest one of all. You get to go there and get your wand. Like it is, it's your wand. It makes you feel like a wizard, like part of the world and stuff. So,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
love the detail that they put into all of this merchandise. If you're getting, your own wand or a replica of someone from the movies, like there's all of these details and swirls and carvings into it. And then the broomsticks that you can buy, you can get a model of the Nimbus 2000, the Nimbus 2001, and the Firebolt, I think they're around $300, a full size replica. They're about 4 feet long. And each one looks just like the one from the movie. I mean, like the Nimbus 2000 has that really sleek end to it. It looks like it's been, greased down. It's very smooth. Whereas the Firebolt has like more of like a jaggedy stick looking end to it. And so you can see those on the brooms that you're getting and like pull a piece of that magic with you, which I think is really cool.
Something interesting and small, but something that makes me happy is you can actually buy the bottle juice, the pumpkin juice bottled at from Universal and online. So just those little things that you can take home with you and enjoy, I think, are just fun.
Right. Yeah, Stephen, that's spot on. I'll tell you what, Stephen, hold the thought on the pumpkin juice, because we will come back to you next week about pumpkin juice, right? So our next episode is at 10 already, of the Wizarding World edition of the Disney Co. in the Know podcast. Excuse me, is chapter 10, Halloween. And I have a feeling that they're going to be drinking some pumpkin juice at the Halloween dinner or party. So, and if they don't, we'll bring it up anyways, because that's just the type of show we are. So, does anyone have anything that they want to add before we kind of wrap up for the week?
No, I think we covered all the great stuff they have.
That's it. It's over. All right. So I'll tell you what, Jake, why don't you finish us up with our divination section real quick, kind of discussing the details of the chapter or universal that we will see again in the future.
Yeah, so we like to look at the foreshadowing moments and stuff like that, since we have knowledge of what will come later. This one, there's a lot going on in this chapter. They're rushing all over the place, having different lessons, all kinds of stuff. So there's not any tiny things that jump out, but we got the big obvious one, of course. We see Fluffy, we see that trapdoor, or at least Hermione sees the trapdoor, and we know how that's going to come back, of course. This is like the big, most important part of the book here. The climax is going to take place when they go through that trapdoor to find the Sorcerer's Stone and all that. So this was a really important part, even though it may not seem like it at this point to someone who's reading it for the first time.
Yeah, very good. Well, Jake, thanks for giving us a little insight into the near future for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and how you can experience that at the Wizarding World at Universal Orlando. So guys, Hannah, Jake, Stephen, thank you for joining me on episode 9. If this is your first time watching the show or listening, this comes out on a weekly basis. You can find us on YouTube at Disney Co in the Know, and you can subscribe to us on iTunes at Disney Co in the Know. For more Universal news on park reopenings and resorts, follow us on Facebook at 407 and Beyond Vacation Company. So guys, until next time, thanks for another good episode, and I'll see you next week. Stay safe.
See you next
See you guys
week.
later. Bye.